Just had one.
Oh, really?
The podium was like far in that corner, and this is a way better set. Oh, yeah.
Small fan club, front row.
So nice. Oh, yeah, I was going to say there was endless from you and your brother.
Yeah, we look a lot alike. She's gonna be so embarrassed to have to come in there.
This is a good crowd for Thursday night.
Yeah,
Don't you know that?
yeah. I think the food helped.
No, it's sometimes really challenging, especially with the weather like it is.
Yeah. I got nervous for a little bit. I was like, oh my gosh.
Also nervous about you getting here.
I know,
Like,
I know that's why I texted you. I was like, I should let her know that I made it.
And we were upstairs where the whole entire wall was glass. So it was like we were in a snow globe.
Oh my god.
It was beautiful.
Oh,
and of course, like the mom in me is like, oh God, please don't call school.
yes.
Please don't call school.
Oh my god. That's just what you needed.
Do that. Yeah, because we've had a lot of that this month.
Yeah.
Is her mic on? Mine's not. I was going to wait until I started. Can we go, Ann? Are we good? Yeah? Okay. Okay, I think we're going to get started. Hope you're enjoying your food. We have a few thank yous to get through. I'll try to make this fast as possible before we turn it over to Caitlin. So most of you know that this event right here culminates our Social Media Week 2020. So this is our 9th year having a social media week here in our college, and there's lots of people to thank. Trust me, this doesn't happen overnight. So we have two alums that fund the travel and the food and a lot of other things that happen during the week. They are Dan and Melanie Peterson. They're based in Chicago. They joined us for last year's event. Couldn't be here this year, but we are all very thankful for the Petersons and hope that they continue to fund the big week, right? We also are thankful for our Dean Mike Worth, all 4 of our school directors, Sally McMillan, Diane Kelly, John Haas, and Catherine Luther. And then there's a few other people around the college that we absolutely could not make this week happen without. We have some faculty members, Mark Harmon, Joy Jenkins, Maria Fontenot, Maria Hoy, We have some staff members who just really pull a large weight. Lauren Ziegler in the back has been instrumental during the week. Pamela Durbin, Mark Geller, Carly Sanders, Amanda Pruitt, and then our IT team, which has made everything run so seamless. Some of you may know that every single session has been live streamed. It's also been archived for our YouTube channel. And so Clint Elmore, Ann Hensley, and John McNair deserve a really big thank you for making all of this happen so easily and so seamlessly. In addition, we have a few students to thank that have served in a social media ambassador role this week. So thank you to those of you that have been tweeting, helping pour drinks, helping us welcome guests, helping with sign-in sheets. Thank you so much for all your hard work. But you're not here for the thank yous or the food, right? You're here for Caitlin. So let's turn it over to her. Our session 3, which will round out our week, is called Building a Luxury Travel Brand on a Budget, How to Cultivate Community on Social Media in 2020. I hope you have heard of the Points Guy. If you haven't, then Caitlin's going to give you the full spiel about what it's all about. And Caitlin comes to us from New York City. She flew in today, and snow was here while sunshine was in Manhattan,
Yeah,
so
for once,
that was
yeah.
random. Caitlin is the social media lead at the Points Guy. She oversees all paid and organic social media efforts. And she manages the Points Guy, a lifestyle media brand with 7 million unique visitors a month and a social media audience of 3 million across Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Caitlin has been in our college in this building as a guest speaker in the social media class, we think about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
She worked at Tombras and helped start the social media team at Tombras, for those of you that are familiar with the Tombras agency in town. And then she also has a claim to fame in that Patrick Wells, which some of you know as the voice that kind of got Moon Pie really popular a few years ago, and now he's in New York. Patrick was her intern, so
Taught him everything he knows.
everything he knows. So we want to turn this over to Caitlin and thank her for traveling from New York City to join us, and just thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having a Kentucky grad. I can say they don't have anything like this at Kentucky, so y'all are very lucky to have this sort of curriculum. Any of you guys heard of the Points Guy before, outside of the context of Social Media Week? A few of you, okay. I had never heard of it before I started working there, so I actually got hired by their parent company, Red Ventures, which is based in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I knew nothing about it. They're like this big points and miles loyalty media company. And then once I kind of got in it and learned the brand a little bit, I was like, oh, he's like the anti-Dave Ramsey. So I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Dave Ramsey, who's very much against credit cards. The Points Guy, Brian Kelly, is all about credit cards and teaches you how to use them wisely and how to take advantage of your airline miles, your hotel points, any sort of loyalty programs like that. So real quick overview of what it is. Like Dr. Childers said, it's a global media brand. It started as just this guy, Brian Kelly, his side gig 10 years ago. He was doing a ton of business travel and earning all of these miles and hotel points, and there wasn't a lot of education out there on how to utilize them and what to do with them. So he started this side gig as a blog and learned how to basically travel for free with points and miles and credit card sign-up bonuses, and then shared his knowledge with the world. Started with a little blog. We now have a full-time team of over 100 people. A huge editorial team that works around the clock and covers travel news and any sort of airline aviation topics like that. Social channels, which I'll obviously get into, a pretty robust video team. We have 2 podcasts with over 1 million listens. We do a lot of experiential, which is something we've just recently gotten into. We had our second annual TPG Awards this past December, where we highlight the best of the best in hotel loyalty, airline loyalty, credit cards, that sort of stuff. We have a daily newsletter, which is we're about to launch a weekly version as well. A big emphasis on Facebook groups, which I will also dig into. And then just last April, we expanded into the UK. So we noticed that the UK was United Kingdom, not Kentucky, my favorite UK. The UK was our number 2 market for our website, and so we were in a place where it made sense for us to go ahead and expand, and that's where we headed. So social specifically at the Points Guy, I have a full-time team of 4 people just on the organic side, where we cover Instagram feed, Instagram stories. We kind of look at those as 2 different entities, which I'll get into. Facebook groups, we now have 5 Facebook groups. Twitter, Pinterest. We just launched a TikTok, and I'm still learning a ton about that. I might have some questions for you guys afterwards. And then Brian also has his own Instagram account as well, and we manage a little bit of that too. So the traditional role, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, of social media has been to cover one of 3 things, or to give your audience one of 3 things: educate them, inform them, or entertain them. And I'm sure you guys have all heard the 80-20 rule and all of those best practices, but there's been a big shift lately with the influx of influencers and more transparency for brands, and that's been the focus on community. So the way community differs in that it is more focused on the people who are consuming the content, and what sort of platform you can give them to share their experiences and their stories. So it's more of a conversation, putting the conversation back in social media, which is kind of the beauty of it, that it's a 2-way stream of communication. And we really work to emphasize the human side of the brand through things like humor, firsthand accounts, and education. So to get into a quote that I really loved: the only difference between an audience and a community is the direction the chairs are facing. So specifically for TPG, I'll kind of go over how we foster community through Facebook groups, Instagram feed, and stories, which I said we kind of look at as 2 different entities, and then Twitter. So let's start with Facebook groups. Our 4 big pillars here in terms of best practices are to make sure that your group has a purpose and to stay focused. There are a ton of groups out there right now. Are any of you guys in Facebook groups? Show of hands. I feel like a lot of people, that's like kind of the only way you use Facebook these days. Facebook themselves are putting a huge emphasis on Facebook groups and community within the platform. I'm sure a lot of you guys saw their Super Bowl ad encouraging people to go join a Facebook group. They have a billboard in Times Square. They're putting a lot of push towards that right now, which is typically a good indicator as to where they're shifting their advertising capabilities. So anytime Facebook puts a lot of emphasis on something, that's usually an indicator of that's a new platform where they're gonna start making money. So it's only a matter of time. We've done a couple beta and alpha tests with Facebook in terms of advertising within Facebook groups. It's not the most seamless experience right now, and I think they're working to kind of make sure it's as good as possible, given there are a lot of sensitive Facebook groups. So keep an eye out for that. That should be coming on the pipeline soon. But it's important to make sure that if you start a group as a brand specifically, you're in a unique position versus just a person starting a group, which is what a lot of them out there are. But it's important to keep in mind a specific topic and stay focused. We recently launched a female travel Facebook group called TBG Women. And within the first few days, we were seeing it just kind of be very similar to every other Facebook group out there for women who travel. And we wanted to keep in mind the main aspect of our brand and lift that up, which is the points and miles angle. So we are constantly optimizing and iterating on what the content looks like. We have pre-moderation turned on so we can kind of help craft what the conversation is. But it's important to keep in mind your main focus when launching those. Also good to show the personal side of the brand. So we share firsthand accounts a lot. We actually shifted our strategy recently when we launched our first Facebook group called the TPG Lounge, I think about 2 years ago. Everything we posted was from the brand account. So it was like the points guy shared this story. And then within the last year, we decided to take a strategy shift and have it be all coming from our firsthand Facebook pages, our first Facebook profiles. And we've seen a huge spike in engagement and active engagement of the members since then. So that's been a big focus for us, is sharing firsthand experiences so that people know who it is that's telling the story or sharing their experience, and that it's not just coming from some faceless brand. We use it a lot to crowdsource content. So we have an editorial team of about 50 people, and they're all members of the group. Anytime they're working on a story or want some data points to include in an article, they will jump into the lounge and say, hey, it's Sam from TPG working on a story. What do you guys think about this? And use that feedback. And then we do a lot of recurring threads too, which are a good way to kind of make it seem like part of a series, and a good extension of the brand, that kind of helps personalize the experience in a way that readers can't get just on our website. So here's some examples of what those look like. On the far left is an example of a poll that one of our editorial staff shared in the group. That second one was actually one that I shared this morning on the way here. Did you guys know that those massive trash cans at the airports have foot pedals on them? Learned that today. I saw a lady walk up and like step on the pedal and it opened by itself. And I was like, that's a really useful information. So stuff like that, we make an effort to share. Obviously, like when any of our team learns tips and tricks, we all travel a ton. We make an effort to share that back to the community so that we're constantly giving them serviceable content. The Beginner Tuesday is an example of a recurring thread that we do. We that group that's in the TPG Lounge is almost at 80,000 members right now, so it can be really overwhelming when you first join the group and not quite sure what questions to ask or where to jump in. So we have recurring threads on specific topics like Beginner Tuesday, where members can answer or submit their questions, and then the community answers their responses to them, which is really cool. And then finally, we do a lot to give back within the group as well. Points and miles sometimes have expiration dates, and it's something that you can transfer from one person to another. So every now and then we'll say, we'll post in there if anyone has expiring points or miles or upgrades or anything like that to share with the group, which is pretty fun. Then Instagram feed. So one of the big strategy shifts we've done in the last few months is shifting towards longer form captions. The long-term success of your Instagram strategy won't come from just pretty pictures. You got to give your audience some sustenance and give them the content that they want. So we kind of look at Instagram feed posts now as little micro guides and extensions of our website and our articles that we have on there. Captions should kind of enhance the image and video and really be truly aligned with the topic. I'll show you some examples in a minute. And the other big shift has been less emphasis on a really pretty grid. So many brands, I think, are so focused on what their grid looks like as a whole on the Instagram feed, and no one really looks at your page like that. So it's more important to have really great content that can each kind of live as its own serviceable asset versus a really pretty aesthetic. It's hard to give up for some people. And then entertaining and informing, we joke that Instagram is kind of just becoming a glorified Twitter feed these days. I'm sure a lot of you guys follow meme accounts where it's just screenshots of tweets. We intersperse that every now and then, as well as just like humorous memes that we come up with, just to kind of add a little more, I guess, like humor to the brand, so they know that we kind of can collaborate with them in terms of any universal like travel struggles or things like that. Adding a little humor to it's always good. And then the most important thing is to not abandon the basics. It's good to always be trying new content and trying new platforms in terms of how you present it, but always make sure to stick to the basics, especially on Instagram. Utilize the hashtags and the geotags, and make sure that you can jump in on trending content when it starts to pick up virality. The hashtags and geotags are also good to keep in mind with Instagram stories as well. A lot of people forget about those. And if you don't want it to mess up the aesthetic, you can kind of just minimize it super small, and put a few hashtags in your Instagram story, and then it'll pick up on the Discover page as well. So some examples of what that looks like. This left one is an example of some of the longer form captions we're doing, where we will take an on-site article, pull a really great image that corresponds with that, and then in the caption highlight some of the pros and cons. The specific one was for a hotel review, and so we wanted to give the users enough information where if they weren't in a place to leave the platform right now, they wanted to stay within Instagram, but still learn as much as they could, we would put a pretty full synopsis of the article there, and then kind of entice them to go back to the website to read the rest of it. The second one is an example of some humor. Obviously, we got to jump in when we can and capitalize on Baby Yoda trending, and find a tie-in for travel. The third one, that is just a screenshot of our grid. It is not really pretty as a whole, but each individual picture tells a really comprehensive story. And we are constantly testing. I'll talk a little bit about measuring success and optimizing, but each of those we kind of test in terms of buckets of content that we know our audience likes. They love aviation photography, so the outside of planes. They love the inside of planes, really cool first class or business class cabins that are almost like little mini apartments. And then they like to see the destinations as well, of where their points and miles can get them. And then the fourth one is a series we started recently, our Reader Hall of Fame series, where within the Facebook group, we ask people to share their success stories with us, how they've utilized points and miles and had some really big trip or vacation or experience. And so we share it there in the Instagram feed with the carousel and actually put faces to these experiences of what the content that we provide can help you guys get. And it breaks down exactly where they went, how they got there, what points they used, how they accrued those points. Again, really kind of focusing on the micro guide format within the Instagram feed, which has been a big hit for us. And then Instagram stories. So Instagram stories, our big focus is on engagement. As you guys know, the people don't really scroll through the Instagram stories horizontally like they scroll through the feed vertically. So our goal is to make sure that we're within the first scroll or two of the people's Instagram stories at the top of their feed. And to do that, we do a lot of engagement driving tactics. So anytime someone engages with your story, it shows the algorithm that they're interested in what you're doing, just like in the feed. And so you'll continue to show up in the top of their story slide. So we utilize the things within the platform. There are, we do a lot of questions and polls, which I'm sure all of you guys have seen, the little slider feature. We utilize a lot of branded Giphies, which is a really fun extension of your brand. We love looking, anytime we do partnerships with credit card companies or airlines or hotels, almost all of them have branded Giphies. It's kind of a fun way to make finance and credit cards exciting within Instagram. And a good content mix is always important too. So we don't just stick to static images or just videos. We do a mix of both, as well as carousels to kind of keep it static and videos for Instagram stories. We do a mix of like people talking straight to the camera or just experiences. We'll highlight special events or things that we get invited to, exclusive access, that kind of stuff. Again, utilizing the tools within the platform, we've run a ton of tests on our Instagram stories in terms of what type of content performs best and gets people engaging. And time after time, we find that the more native looking content that's less produced and utilizing tools within the platform itself always perform better. So the fonts, the colors, like I said, Giphies, that kind of stuff always performs better when it's raw and it looks like it was made within the platform versus something that looks like an ad. It's also important to keep in mind the story aspect. So we do a lot of cool like hotel reviews and airline reviews and things like that. And we always try to teach our team to keep in mind that it's a story, just like they tell on the site, and it needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and kind of set that context as to where are you, why is this important to the viewers, who are you if you're doing a takeover or something like that. Always keep in mind the story aspect and try to conclude it at the end with a strong ending. And then listen to the audience. We do a bunch of polls and surveys as well every so often, again, utilizing the tools within the platform just to make sure that the content that we're creating is stuff that our audience wants to see and continues to engage with. So some examples there. This one on the far left is just a holiday quiz we did about holiday travel, again, utilizing the content within the options within the platform. The second one is a hotel review we do where we literally take the full on-site article and turn it into a visual format within Instagram stories. And so we highlight all of the check-in process at the hotel, the food and beverage options, what the room looks like, the amenities, that kind of stuff, and make it seem like you're really there experiencing it. We do a lot of informational type stuff, beginner series. A lot of our content is very technical and can be pretty confusing at times. And so Instagram stories is the platform where we've seen we have the most beginners. And we really try to explain stuff a level deeper within Instagram stories since it is a visual format. And then we do a lot of races too, which is something our audience really loves. We've done, I think, 4 or 5 of them now where we have 4 or 5 people on staff. This one in particular was a race to the Hamptons, which New York in the summer, everyone goes to the Hamptons. And so we looked at 5 different modes of transportation, how to get there. I think one was a helicopter, the train, the subway, a rental car. I can't remember what the 5th one was. But so then we have all 5 of those people assigned to one mode of transportation. They each have the login to the Instagram account. They kind of, there's a lot of pre-planning in terms of who's going to take it over when and making sure the logistics work. But the audience then follows the whole journey from New York to the Hamptons. They outline how much each of those options cost, any hiccups along the way, that type of stuff. And our audience loves those because it gives you the cast of characters that you can kind of root for. And then also everyone loves a good competition. So that whole aspect of it is really fun and engaging. Instagram Stories in particular is a platform that a lot of people don't really think about the community that much because unlike the rest of social media, it doesn't have a comment opportunity. You can send DMs through it, but there's not really that opportunity to build the community there within the stories. So we look for opportunities to do that with Q&As as well. We just had a doctor that ran a Q&A for all about coronavirus and all the fears of traveling with that. So we asked users to submit their questions through Instagram Stories, and then we shared a bunch of them. And then anytime someone mentions us, typically it's when they've redeemed a lot of points and they're headed to a really great vacation spot. So it's really fun to share, but we always make sure to share mentions or at least engage with people in the DMs whenever possible. And then Twitter. The most important thing with Twitter is to make sure that whatever you're pushing out is timely and relevant. There's so much saturation of conversation within Twitter, and so you have to make sure that your content is timely and relevant and on topic with what people are currently talking about. Also good to start conversations. We every now and then do Twitter Q&As or Twitter chats. And asking users to share their feedback similarly to how we do on all the other platforms as well. And also anytime someone asks us a question, if it's an opinion-based question, we'll usually just quote tweet it and send it out to our audience who, honestly, they all probably travel more than us and all have very strong opinions. So we'll quote tweet it and ask the audience to share. The main thing with all of these tactics is that people love sharing their opinions on social media, as I'm sure we all know, whether we like it or not. So really giving them that platform to do so is where you're going to find the best success. And then listening to them, again, looking for opportunities to jump in, not just in your mentions, but being proactive with, we have a pretty wide array of content that we cover. So anytime people talk about airplanes or airports or things like that, that's also a good opportunity for us to dig in and find what sort of content we can pull for funny tweets to then screenshot and share on Instagram. And then making sure to speak their language. So using the relevant terminology, speaking conversationally, your tweet should sound just like a text to a friend. Another tactic we utilize a lot is emojis. That's something that most brands don't really utilize on Twitter. And that's something we do a lot on our paid tweets as well, on the paid media side of things to help our content kind of stick out. Here are some examples. So this one on the far left was started as just a conversation we were having in the office on, those moving walkways in the airports. Apparently the technical terminology is called a travelator. And we heard this and did not believe it. So we opened it up to Twitter, which is always full of opinions, pushed it out there to see what our audience calls it. And that was one of our most engaged tweets of all time. I think we got like 800 responses, which was pretty entertaining to kind of sit there and watch them come through and then watch people reply to each other. The second one, someone had tweeted us asking what the best lounge was at this specific airport, which Delta Lounge in the Atlanta airport, they have quite a few. So we, instead of just answering it ourselves, opened it up to the community, and we knew that they would have a lot of opinions, and so that also generated a ton of engagement. The third one is some relatable, relevant content we pushed out for Valentine's Day this year, fun plays on words with travel-related topics. And then the fourth one of the girls on our team pushed this out earlier in the week, and I started reading it, and I was like, oh, where is this one going? And then she had a really great tie-in to the article that it's talking about. It's a review of a new lounge at an airport that has a full wine cellar and 18 different wines to sample. And so it made sense. The day it published happened to be on National Drink Wine Day. So there was a nice little tie-in there. Video content. So this is another thing that whether you have a big budget or no budget at all, like Instagram stories is really how we utilize video content pretty heavily. Aside from the races to the Hamptons or wherever it might be, those have a little bit of budget behind them for the travel. But the video content itself is all very non-edited, very easy to create, whether you have a team or not. And like I said, some of the big best practices that we've learned to help that kind of create the community and get the audience engaged and involved and rooting for it is to create a sense of competition. This is a screenshot from our UK team. One of the cool programs that they've kind of, or I guess campaigns that they've kind of implemented is 4-class reviews. So within international flights, there's typically 4 different classes of seats, which I knew nothing about before I worked at this company. I'm economy for life. So they will draw names out of a hat, and they'll do a flight from London to New York on a new airline or a new plane. And each of them draws which cabin they're going to sit in, and then each of them is equipped with a GoPro, and they kind of document the entire journey. So what food they got across all the different classes. Obviously in first class and business, it's much nicer food, much nicer accommodations, and then what it looks like all the way down in economy. And again, that kind of sense of competition. One of the guys, Jean, always for some reason draws economy, and so for the first 4 videos they did of this, he was always in economy, and then the 5th one, he finally got business class, and it was so cool to see the community kind of rally around him and get so excited for economy Jean. So having that cast of characters as well, and having the same people that your audience can kind of come to recognize also helps with that community and engagement. And then these are just some other fun ideas I've seen from obviously travel and my industry is easy to come up with content for, but some of the other industries that I think do a really great job. Have any of you guys heard of this lady? I think her name is Charlene from this. Have you guys talked about that yet? She was on Good Morning America the other day, I think, but it's a Walmart in Maryland, just a location Facebook page. And their whole feed is filled with this lady just doing crazy things that are topical to whatever holiday it is. So they have what I think the other day they had her in a grocery cart covered in cabbage, and it was it's National Cabbage Day. Come see Charlene. Just a fun way to again add personality to your brand, get people excited. They just started a petition to get her on Ellen, so we might be seeing more of Charlene. Then Tastemade is another brand that I think does a really great job. They have the Tastemade US account on Instagram stories, and then Tastemade UK. They both do a lot of cool stuff with playing with the features within Instagram stories. So one of the things that Tastemade UK does that I just think is really cool, they do what's called tap through campaigns. And so it's tap through to watch these cookies bake or something. And it's each frame in Instagram stories is just one static image, but if you tap through really quickly, almost like a flip book, if you guys are familiar with those, you tap through really quickly and it almost animates across all of the different slides, which is really cool. They also have this, which is memorize the recipe. So they show a recipe and then ask questions to the audience within it. The third one is the New York Public Library, which they have a whole emphasis on getting more people to read and having more awareness about the books that they have in the library and what you can kind of experience there. So they actually do a series. If you go look at their highlights on their Instagram, they have a whole series where it's just the full book. And each slide, each frame within the Instagram stories is a page in the book, and you can sit there and hold down. It tells you at the beginning, hold down the slide to be able to read it. It's really cool. If you see the candle on the bottom right-hand corner, as you tap through the candle, the wax starts melting and it gets lower and lower, so you know you're closer to the end. And then Glossier does a really great job with the user-generated content. This is a video where they highlighted, I think, 5 or 6 different fans of their brand, all using this one product and how they each use it differently, what they had to say about it. Again, it's very like base level video content. It's not anything highly produced. It's something that really anyone could do, which is nice. So measuring success, the Points Guy is owned by a company called Red Ventures, which is a data and analytics company. So we do a lot of rigorous testing and analysis on a daily, weekly, monthly basis for social media specifically. So I think I forgot to explain this. Our business model at the Points Guy, we're an affiliate marketer. So we work with credit card companies, and anyone who applies for a credit card from our website through the content that we write, we make a cut from that. And so you can imagine with organic social, it's a lot harder to convince people to buy credit cards when you're in their news feed among cat videos and pictures of their niece's birthday and that kind of stuff. So for organic social, we look more at like what I've been talking about, the community and how getting these people engaged, bringing them into the funnel so that when they are ready to make a purchase decision for a credit card or book a trip or whatever it might be, they know that we're the resource to come to for that. So for social specifically, while the other branches of our team are all focused on revenue, including paid social. Organic social, we look more at the impressions and reach, site traffic, community growth, and then all of that will eventually lead to diversifying revenue. So what our goal is for the organic side of things, since we don't really expect people to apply for a credit card right from Instagram or Twitter, we want to be creating content that brands want to partner with. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have started to see sponsored content, especially on Instagram stories, is a really great platform for that. There's a few brands that I think do it really well. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Betches Media. They have a bunch of different verticals, which are great for targeting and great for brands to partner with. They have like Betches Bride. They just launched a travel vertical, that kind of stuff. So they create content and then they get it sponsored by Away Luggage or whatever it might be that makes sense. So that's our ultimate goal here, is to focus on increasing the impressions and reach, the traffic that we drive back to our site and that community in general, so we can then take it to an advertiser, a sponsor, a partner, and say, hey, you guys, your brand should want to be a part of the content that we're creating. And within that, obviously, there's unique metrics within each platform. Twitter, we look to drive a lot more traffic than we would Instagram, just because of the nature of the platform. And then we have a strategic content repromotion plan, any type of what we call evergreen content that can live a little bit longer, that's not specific for a really timely or newsworthy event. We re-promote that every so often, whether it's on our Instagram stories or Twitter or Facebook feed, just so it kind of continues to have legs and increase that traffic back to the site if we know that it's already been a proven winner before. So my team specifically does weekly reporting where we look at every single platform that we're on for social media and what worked in that week, what didn't, what was our top performing content, what was our lowest, where are people coming to the website from, what was the content that made them click the most, where did we grow fans, did we get any big mentions, that kind of stuff, and always looking at how we can get better, especially with the Facebook groups as well. There's a lot more volatility there, as you can imagine. So we're constantly looking at all of those metrics on a weekly basis and then having optimization meetings every Friday where we take that weekly report and then talk through it and say, okay, what were the biggest learnings from the week? How can we then optimize those, and what are our next steps, so that we always walk into Monday morning with some actionable next steps on how we can optimize the strategy that we had last week. Here's another example of how we measure success. This is specifically for Instagram stories. So obviously Instagram, we don't get a ton of great demographics within the platform, unfortunately. But we get baseline demographics on our total audience. But what we wanted to know was, what can we learn from the audience that's actually engaging with our content? So on average, our Instagram stories reach between about 20 and 30,000 people for any individual story. So we wanted to know specifically those people who are watching our content every day, what is it that they want to get from us? What is it that they already enjoy getting from us? And like, what can we learn from them, again, so that we can take back to advertisers and have a better picture of who this is that we're speaking to, so that a partner would want to create content with us. Then this is kind of the learnings from that survey that we ran. just two of the questions of why do you follow us already, giving us an idea of what we need to continue doing so we know that this is content that works and that people want to see more of, and then what would they want to see differently. So we had really been focusing a lot on the travel aspect and kind of not having as much emphasis on the actual points and miles, which is the technical stuff that people really need to learn and want to learn from us. And so we took that and then implemented some new campaigns where we started focusing more on points and miles. We started a beginner series where we really break down all of the intricacies of loyalty programs and that kind of stuff to kind of get back to our core bread and butter content, which has been really helpful. Yeah, and then these are just some of my favorite resources that I think are great for the social media industry. Matthew Kobach, I don't know if you guys have ever talked about him. I highly suggest everyone follow him on Twitter. He does he heads social for the New York Stock Exchange, and just drops a lot of knowledge bombs about the organic social industry, and just really psychology and human nature in general, which are really enlightening. Taylor Lawrence is the New York Times reporter for digital and new media, and she covers a lot of new platforms like TikTok. She writes a lot about YouTubers and that kind of stuff. So she's a really great resource to follow. There are a ton of Facebook groups out there for social media professionals. There's one that actually Moonpie Patrick got me into called the Secret Society of Brands, which just the name alone made me want to join it. It consists of a bunch of social media managers from all over the world sharing struggles, challenges, successes, that kind of stuff. And that's where I usually get the best information from. There are a ton of podcasts out there. Perpetual Traffic is really great for the paid social side of things, which can be extremely intimidating. But they do a really great job of talking through it with specific examples of accounts that they manage. A Drink with James is a good, I can't remember his last name, but it's the CEO of FOHR, which is one of the biggest influencer agencies out there. And so he talks a lot about influencer marketing, which obviously is a big aspect of the industry. There's one just called Social Media Marketing, and then another that's the science of social media. Every single episode isn't always super valuable, but I am subscribed to all those and kind of keep an eye on what subjects they're talking about each week. I think each of them are weekly iterations, and there's always good stuff on there. The creator's profile itself on Instagram, which is where Instagram is starting to share a little bit more about how their algorithm works. It's aimed at the content creators. They share a lot of stats and data from within the Instagram platform themselves, which is helpful. Later is a really great platform that we utilize to schedule our Instagram feed posts, and they have a ton of content. I actually just saw they were posting a job opening for a TikTok expert, so I think they're going to start writing a lot more TikTok content as well. And then Iconosquare is one of the platforms that we use the most for Instagram and Facebook and Twitter data and analysis, which are super helpful. That's all I got. Do you guys have any questions?
If you have a question, we're going to bring you a microphone so our crowd at home can hear. Come in.
So I'm in video production. So what are since you have your weekly meetings, what do you get the most results or excitement over? Is it videos? Is it your question and answers? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so that's a good question. We look at the Instagram stories by every single one that we do that week. I forgot to mention, we do what we call daily top stories every single day at around 5 or 6 o'clock. On Instagram stories, we push out just a very basic template of what were our top 5 trending articles for the day. So we push those out. We really get excited about just like the trends and the learnings that we kind of geek out on within the information and the data. The majority of my team is the content creators, and then we have one guy on staff who is the analyst. And so a lot of this stuff we don't realize what's working until we get in that meeting and see that. But for Instagram stories specifically, the Q&As perform so well. We just got a studio in our new office, which we're really excited about. And it's really cool because we have this huge editorial team who are experts in the topic. My team knows a lot about aviation and points and miles, but we're more experts in social media. And so leaning on the editorial staff is always awesome because they are just such professionals, and a lot of them do national media, and so getting them just in front of our iPhones to sit there and talk and teach our audience is always really fun. Yeah.
So you were saying that you like analyze all of the data, like engagement and reach and all of that. Do you just use like the insights that Instagram gives you, or do you use outside databases to like gather that information?
Good question. We actually use a lot of internal stuff that our teams have created, proprietary platforms. We look at, for the content side of things, like I said, Iconosquare, Later. I'm trying to think. The platforms themselves just have a lot of limited data. So what we're really interested in is looking at once we can look at all the baseline, what we call like top of funnel data, which is like site traffic, engagement, et cetera. But then the stuff that we really geek out on is looking at when they come to the website, what sort of content are they looking at there? And we have these things that are called impact scores that our team in Charlotte created that are basically like, these buckets of content are better for getting people to subscribe to our newsletter. These buckets of content are better for our making people become brand advocates, that kind of stuff. So we actually get really deep down the funnel to look at that kind of stuff. But I think the general top of funnel stuff is what interests us the most. But yeah, being backed by a data company is really nice because we have numbers and analytics for any aspect that we could want to learn about the audience, which is really cool in a non-creepy way.
So non-social media related, but you mentioned that you were quite unfamiliar with the Points Guide whenever you first started there, right?
Yeah.
So for everyone in the audience, what are some travel tips that you've learned? Doesn't have to be credit card related, but are there any things that stick out to you as some fun travel information you might want to share?
So anytime you fly on any airplane, make sure you sign up for their loyalty program. Always and stay at any hotel as well. Make sure you're signing up for the loyalty programs. There are a ton of ways that you can earn points and miles without having to fly or stay at hotels. But establishing those accounts within each program is key to starting to earn those. My favorite thing that I've learned is shopping portals. So every airline has, it still blows my mind. I don't understand what the value is for the airlines, but they have I'm going to just go back here in case that's distracting. They have online shopping portals, which are basically, have you guys heard of like Ebates and Rakuten, that kind of stuff? So I'll just give you like the whole example, but if you go, say I'm going to spend $100 at Sephora, I'm going to go through American Airlines shopping portal. So it's like the separate website. If you search American Airlines shopping portal, it'll pop up. You have to create the account and then link your account to it. But on any given day, they have a ton of retailers and partners that they work with. Sephora, J. Crew, Nike, Apple, etc., where you can go on and they have multipliers. So for any given day, for example, I think it was 2 days ago, Sephora had 8x on American Airlines shopping portal, which means for every $1 you spend on Sephora's website, if you come from American Airlines shopping portal, you'll earn 8 times that in miles. So if you spend $100, you're going to earn 800 miles for American Airlines without ever having to book a flight or anything like that. The best I ever utilized that was I got the new iPhone a few months ago, and every now and then, it's like once or twice a year, Apple does 10x on the shopping portals. And so I happened to find the day that Apple was 10x on American Airlines shopping portal. I bought the new cell phone outright. I think it was like $1,500. So I earned 15,000 miles, which is equivalent to, I mean, that could get me here in New York and to New York and back for free, just by a purchase that I was already going to make. So just by knowing what's out there and creating these frequent loyalty accounts, there are so many ways to earn points and miles that don't require spending a ton of money on airline or travel or anything like that. I don't always understand it or how, like, what the value is to Sephora to do that, but it's really exciting. We have a whole beginner's guide too. it is a really technical industry, and I'm still consider myself a beginner, and I've been here 2 years. It's a really technical industry, and it's something that, again, is kind of hard we do utilize a ton of video content, and social media helps a lot, but it's hard to get a lot out of it just from reading an article. It's so much easier to see other people's success stories and learn how other people are utilizing it. Yep.
So wow, that's loud. For someone who's just starting out a like travel company or something like that, and like on the like the travel advisor side or something like that, and they don't have like a team of people working for them, it's just them like starting from scratch, what's like your biggest social media tip for like spreading awareness about their brand and getting more business?
Yeah, I think sharing the firsthand experiences is going to be key there. So highlighting what it is about you that made you want to get into that industry, highlighting the places that you've been and where you've seen success. And then I think the other big thing, especially within Instagram, a lot of people use Instagram almost as a search engine. So we try to get really specific with our hashtags and geotags. Instead of, if we have a new hotel review that we want to highlight and we're posting a really pretty picture of it on our Instagram feed, instead of just putting Paris, France, we're going to geotag the hotel specifically. Because more and more people these days are utilizing Instagram as a search engine and looking up specific. That's how, I mean, anytime I like go out to dinner or go travel to a new city, I look at specific locations within that city or look at the food on the other people who have tagged into that restaurant so I think being really specific about the content, and then networking a ton. So utilizing the Facebook groups to find other like-minded travelers who you can build those relationships with, and start getting a group of brand advocates to kind of create testimonials for you and that kind of stuff to really help spread the word. But utilizing all of the social channels is key.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you said you guys were using TikTok now, and I know their analytics are a lot different than like Instagram's. So are you finding like more luck with their in-app analytics because they're more specific than like Instagram's?
That's a good question. I actually personally have not looked at the analytics within TikTok yet. I know we have, we just got our account verified yesterday, which was very exciting. But we got a TikTok rep and had a long conversation with her the other day. She kind of ran through a bunch of best practices, and I was actually listening to a podcast on the plane on the way down here too. TikTok's big emphasis is on creating, kind of like with the Facebook groups, very niche content and sticking with that. So we've kind of started, I tell my team not to talk about TikTok because I don't want any of our senior leadership asking about it yet, because we don't really have a strategy. Mainly because there's so much stuff on there that goes viral that no one can explain. And so as a marketer who a lot of our decisions are based in data and analytics, it's really hard to kind of outline a strategy that I think will be successful. So for TikTok, we're definitely still learning there. We learned a lot of best practices. And I think it's going to be hard for brands in general to break out on that platform. I think Taylor Lawrence, that I listened to a podcast with her on the way down, and she was saying brands should just stick to paid media on TikTok and just do paid advertising. But I disagree. I think there's a lot of opportunities for brands to create challenges organically within the TikTok and the TikTok kids these days within the platform to kind of create trending content. But she was saying things like key length is 11 to 15 seconds. Don't use more than 3 hashtags because it looks spammy. Don't include hashtag FYP or for your page because that also looks spammy. But yeah, that's one that we're still learning a ton about, and I am excited because it's a new platform. Do all of you guys have TikTok accounts? Yeah. I spend hours on it. It is like a black hole. It is so entertaining.
I think we all want to give Caitlin a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys.
UTSMW 2020 is over. There's still some food remaining in the entryway if you'd like to help yourself. And thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, yeah. Thanks. Thank you.